Let's talk Notre Dame football on the Our Lads Football Network for the OFN today. Greg DePalma here, and anytime we talk Notre Dame football, and what else are we going to talk Notre Dame about? Well, we could talk basketball, but we're gonna use Kyle for football, of course, here on this network. Kyle Kelly, how's it going, Kyle?
Well, Notre Dame's 4-0 and the number 9 team in the country, so things are certainly going well. And on my recruiting beat, Notre Dame just landed two massive verbal commitments over the last 2 days, so all is well in the world of Notre Dame football.
And who are those recruits?
They got a top 40 quarterback in the 2025 class from Luckdale, George County High School, Luckdale, Mississippi. Deuce Knight pulled him out of the South. He verbally committed to Notre Dame, and then they picked up a offensive tackle from the Boston area, West Roxbury, Massachusetts. Catholic Memorial, Gerby Lambert. He's a top 55 guy, and on the On3 network, which is where Blue and Gold is represented, he's a trending toward 5-star status. So
Wow. Okay.
two big commitments for Notre Dame, and it's tough not to think that they kind of plan those that way to build some momentum for this Saturday's game against Ohio State.
Were those players that you expected?
So the Deuce Knight one was a little bit crazy because they had another 2025 quarterback from California, Bear Bachmeyer, visit on Saturday, and everyone kind of expected him to commit, and it was kind of a race between who took the spot between
Okay.
Bachmeyer and Knight. Knight scheduled a visit for the Ohio State game, but that's a guy in SEC country. He was supposed to be at Auburn last weekend, I think, and Penn State this weekend. So there was a lot of things going on behind the scenes. But he committed to the staff on Sunday and announced on Monday. And then for Gerby Lambert, he's basically gave Notre Dame every indication he was going to be in the fold. Everyone was just waiting on him to make that public. So he finally did that on Tuesday. So yeah, we kind of had everything ready to go just because we thought Gerby, he was a guy trending toward Notre Dame, but Deuce Knight, it was a hectic Monday morning to say the least.
So, like you just said, to tip it off, I mean, this is great way to start the week, and hopefully ending the week even better would be awesome. Taking on a team, Ohio State, of course, one of the top programs in the country for many years. I mean, as far as I've been born, really, they've had some up and downs, but mostly ups, as we all know. And so you guys played this team last year. A lot of people actually, I don't know, I remember last year because this was the kickoff game, of course, and those are always uh, crazy situations when you haven't even played a game yet, and then you schedule like a big time team. But Notre Dame hung in the game, and eventually Ohio State would become this offensive juggernaut. It was a really defensive battle. What did you remember about the game?
I remember Notre Dame holding Ohio State to 21 points, which was tied for the lowest total of the 2022 season. And for like 3 quarters, Notre Dame held them to like I think only 2 scores or something like that. Trying to pull up the box score here to remember exactly what it was, but
It was 21-10, I think, is the
computer.
score.
Yeah, that was the final score, but I was trying to find out what it was through 3 quarters. Either way, Notre Dame was really impressive for 3 quarters in that game. Looking at it right now, yeah, it was 10-7 at half, and Ohio State ended up scoring with 17 seconds in the third quarter to make it 10-14 or 14-10. Then they capped one off late to make it 21-10. So Notre Dame was in that game the whole time. It was just like they had this new starting quarterback, Tyler Buckner, inexperience. I think he was making his first start technically. He had a little bit of experience the year before, but it was really first big game for him. And it was like Notre Dame's game plan in that game was time of possession, keep the ball out of Ohio State hands. And they did that. And the defense, they bent a lot, but they never really broke until late in that third quarter. They gave up like a 90-yard drive, and that's what was really the kryptonite. And I mean, overall, it kind of gave Notre Dame fans a lot of confidence coming out of that game, even though it was a loss. But Everyone was brought back down to earth pretty quickly after they lost to Marshall the following week. It was
Yeah.
like Notre Dame, like first year head coach Marcus Freeman, former Ohio State
Panic.
Buckeye. They like,
Yeah.
yeah, they invested, that whole off season and so much energy and time into the Ohio State game. It was just the week after that, um, they were flat and turned out to be a loss. But this year, Notre Dame, they are going into this week's game firing on all cylinders on pretty much every department of the team, and there's a little momentum this time around. And
Yes.
that this, I think, going in the season, the spread was like 7.5 points for Ohio State. Now it's down to, I think, hovering right around 3 points. So it's starting to trend in Notre Dame's direction. I think there's a lot of optimism around the team entering this Saturday.
And I'll full disclosure here. So I do a football contest every week with these big time handicappers over at playbooksports.com. And I have to pick 2 picks a week, NFL, college, and you have a top team and a bottom team. You get 2 points, top team, 1 point, bottom team. And my top team for 2 points is Notre Dame. Out of all the games and all the teams in this weekend, and this is against Ohio State. So I'm going for it, and I'm going for it because and we'll go through the reasons. We'll start first of all with you mentioned Buckner and what a big difference it is going to be for Notre Dame to be throwing Sam Hartman out there instead of Buckner. And of course, we just saw Buckner this past weekend with Alabama, and that didn't go all that well. But uh, we talked about it before the season began. I'm a big Hartman fan. I thought this was a tremendous move. I think he's a sleeper NFL draft pick. I know they talk about, well, I mean, maybe he's not that big and he doesn't have the strongest arm and this and that. But I've seen it before, and I've seen these guys succeed before. And this is his opportunity now. This is why he came to Notre Dame. He came to Notre Dame to play in these types of games on this type of big stage, and he has, and they have the edge. This is an edge that Notre Dame has, and I don't know how many edges they have in the game, but this is the edge that they have to take advantage of.
Yeah, you said it. Kind of took the words right out of my mouth. I think Notre Dame's a little bit stronger in the trenches as well. It's kind of what I've been harping on, but they head and shoulders have the better quarterback this year. Sam Hartman has been everything Notre Dame's wanted, and believe it or not, he's been more. He has been tremendous this season. He is completing over 70% of his passes, already has over 1,000 yards, 13 touchdowns and zero interceptions. He did have a little fumble mishap against NC State last week, or the week before, rather. But besides that, he has been terrific. And you mentioned the NFL draft stock. I haven't really looked or dove too deep into where he's at. I think coming into the season, he was a guy that was considered a draftable guy, but probably not one to go on day two, or certainly not day one.
Yep,
I have to imagine he's working himself into the conversation to be um, a guy that could go on day two. He has
possibly.
been outstanding for Notre Dame this season. It's the only way to put it. Right now, the way it's trending is he is gonna have be in the conversation to be in New York for the Heisman if he keeps playing at this level. He's going to need an outstanding game
Yep.
this week against Ohio State, and then if Notre Dame rolls in to South Bend undefeated against USC on October 14th, and Sam Hartman takes down Caleb Williams, the
Yeah,
reigning Heisman Trophy guy.
yeah,
There you go, folks. That's going to be your
it's
Heisman
over.
favorite
Yeah,
for the remainder of the season.
yeah.
So I think Notre Dame thought they were going to have a really, really, really good quarterback, a great quarterback. But now that they have one that has been borderline phenomenal through 4 games, and that's the edge going into this week, and that's kind of why I'm starting to lean toward Notre Dame winning this football game.
Yeah, I know last week, and I've talked about it on our college football show the last couple of weeks regarding I update the Heisman numbers, and I put together a list of players that I believe are really good bargains. Uh, Anybody could, of course, talk about the top guys, and so some of my bargains have been Hartman. Hartman was part of that list, of course, and now I think he was at 16-1 at the time. He's now down to 10-1, and I'm assuming he's down to 10-1, probably going into this week for the very reason why, if you're going to invest money on Sam Hartman to win the Heisman, you do it now, because if he does have that big game and they do win, he's right up there. He's right up there. He's probably neck and neck with Caleb Williams. They have Michael Penix as the second choice, but I think
Yep.
he shoots right ahead of Michael Penix as the second choice behind Caleb Williams. And unlike you said, if, and then they take on Caleb Williams, that could just be just a tremendous matchup, one of the biggest matchups that we've seen in the regular season in years. So first things first, and that's beating Ohio State. And we're talking about this matchup with Ohio State because not that they don't have a talented quarterback, but he's inexperienced. And yeah, he's starting to play a little bit better. He seems to be a little bit more comfortable. But the fact is, he just hasn't played a team like this. He hasn't played a defense like this. He's on the road. He hasn't played a road game like this. That's a lot to ask a kid like that when you're taking a look on the opposite side and you got Sam Hartman, who's been in every perceivable game possible.
Yeah, I mean, you basically said it. I haven't had a chance to dive too deep into Ohio State, but I have kept tabs on them all off season and certainly this season. And the quarterback has been the storyline. I mean, as is for most programs, but Ryan Day didn't even name Kyle McCord the team's true starting quarterback until till last week.
Yep.
And there was always going to be a lot of pressure on him to follow up CJ Stroud, a guy that went number 2 overall in the NFL draft. And we've kind of talked about it amongst ourselves, me and my colleagues, about Notre Dame against Ohio State last year. And even though CJ Stroud didn't have like this monster statistical game, there were just throws he made on that field that few college quarterbacks could have made. And that's exactly why he's in the NFL
Yeah.
as a starting quarterback already. So it's certainly a step back for Ohio State this season. I think there's some frustration building among some of the wide receivers about maybe not getting as many strong targets or catchable balls compared
Yeah.
to CJ Stroud. And uh, you know that Ohio State wide receiver core, everyone knows about it. It's one of the best position groups in the country, if not the biggest position groups or best position group. But what's it matter if you don't have a guy with consistency throwing them the football? I mean, let's be honest. I mean, Kyle McCord is still one of the better quarterbacks in college football, but it's just like it's such a night and day difference compared to what Ohio State's used to when they
Yeah.
had Justin Fields and obviously CJ Stroud, these guys that
That's
went
right.
in the first round of the NFL draft, and what's kind of made Ohio State known as a quarterback factory. So it's going to be a little bit different, but I think also in that same vein, Kyle McCord's bound to step up and start to play extremely well one of these weeks, I would have to think. And yeah, I think similarly to Notre Dame, Ohio State's probably investing a lot of time and resources into this game. So Notre Dame can't be caught off guard, but I think you definitely have to be a little bit optimistic based off what they've seen through the first 3 weeks.
And on the flip side, if you take a look at it, if you're an Ohio State fan, if you believe in Kyle McCord, if you think, like you said, maybe the breakout game could come on Saturday night, well, he's 40-1 to win the Heisman. So that's up to you, obviously, if you're thinking that he has what it takes. But we haven't seen that yet. And by the way, Devin Brown, like you're talking about the other quarterback, how do we know that it's if Notre Dame gets up to a really good start, if McCord seems like he's struggling a little bit, I don't think Ryan Day is going to wait. I just don't. I think that it was that close. The kid has got talent. I don't think he's just going to sit there and not let Devin Brown get an opportunity. The thing is, well, if he does get an opportunity, well, nobody knows. I mean, maybe this kid. How many times have we seen it? When you go to camp, NFL, college football, big quarterback battle, and the quarterback that wins the job wins it mainly because he's a better practice quarterback. But then you get into the action, the game, and all of a sudden, sometimes quarterbacks can flip the switch and be better during the games than they are in practice. So we don't know. That's something that Notre Dame doesn't need, but it's something that Ohio State does still possess, which makes them a scary, dangerous team. They are loaded with players, starters and backups, especially at that quarterback position. So even if McCord gets up to a slow start, Devin Brown can come in and he could end up being an X factor as well.
Yeah, I know Ohio State's tried to bring Devin Brown into the game a couple times this season, and he just really hasn't gotten anything going yet. I think that's a guy that practiced really well during the preseason, but I think Ryan Day just decided to lean on Kyle McCord as a more experienced guy. Maybe had a little bit of an edge in terms of practice production. But like this game could turn out a little bit like the Notre Dame against Clemson game last year, where I think Clemson came in as the Vegas favorite, obviously, and Notre Dame just came out and they punched them in the mouth. I don't think Ohio State's can be that easy of a victory as compared to the Clemson game where Notre Dame just dominated. I mean, completely dominated them through 4 quarters. But basically, my point is here is that DJ Uyunglele, he was the starter for Clemson, but Dabo Sweeney had a very short leash all of last year, and he brought in Cade Klubnik at key points during that game. Obviously, it didn't end up working out, um, but we could see a similar shakeout possibly this week against Ohio State. I mean, my gut feeling is they probably roll through Kyle McCord through the thick
Sure.
and thin, but I mean, obviously, as you mentioned, they have a very talented quarterback behind them, and if Ohio State finds itself in a little bit of a rut, there might have to be something that they turn to pick them back up.
But you made a good point. It's not like the kid hasn't at least played a little bit, and that's been the thing. And again, my point was really just generalizing, just so because you just never know.
It is a
Um,
possibility, no doubt.
yeah, but I don't. I'm with you. I don't expect that to happen. I agree. It's not like this kid has looked all that great. Matter of fact, I'll even post up on the screen there if you can, if the viewers can see that. This is from College Football Stats, and if you can see that, Brown's stats overall not impressive. He hasn't done much, so nothing to get. Again, they're just stats. But what has been impressive, of course, so far has been Travion Henderson. He's looked like the real deal. And they've got a good running back situation going with the three of them, the three top guys. That's really where the game, in my mind, is going to win or lose for Notre Dame. Force the game upon McCord and force him to throw the ball as much as possible. Stop the running game. Stop Henderson first and foremost.
Yeah, just kind of. It seems like this could maybe turn into a game where Ohio State has to rely on the run game. They got a couple pretty good backs between him, Travion Henderson, Mayan Williams, who was really tough on Notre Dame last year. He was tough on a lot of teams all of last season. That's why he was talked about as a potential draft selection. But Notre Dame's run defense has been pretty respectable this year. I mean, they're a top 50 team, only allowing 107 yards per game, and the yards per carry number is pretty impressive as well, allowing less than 3 yards per carry. I'm trying to see where that stacks up in college football, and that is actually, I think it's about the same. Yeah, it's like a top 25 number. So Notre Dame's hovering around one of the top 25 run defenses in the NFL, or sorry, NCAA. I don't think Notre Dame's been really tested on the ground. Obviously, Navy in week 0 brought a pretty interesting, triple option that's always tough to defend, but Notre Dame was pretty impressive there. And then with games against like Tennessee State and Central Michigan, like those two teams found themselves in such a hole early on. Tennessee State more than Central Michigan, but where they had to really rely on throwing the football. I know Notre Dame had a little bit of trouble last week against Central Michigan's two running back attack, but I think that that's a part of the game where if you're Ohio State, you might have to really rely on to wear Notre Dame's defense down that way compared to last year, where obviously they had the advantage in the air. But Notre Dame's got two really outstanding cornerbacks. Benjamin Morrison, freshman All American. He is been as advertised again. They have another NFL. They have an NFL guy and Cam Hart on the opposite side.
What a matchup.
So
What a
yeah,
matchup.
it's going to be a matchup, and I know in talking to some people around Notre Dame, that's one that they are really excited about to show what they have. this year. Last year's a little bit different. Cam Hart was banged up. Um, Benjamin Morrison made his first career start against Ohio State. It's going to look completely different this year.
Yeah, because and you also got the tight end Stover, and Ohio State always has these tight ends, like Notre Dame does. But yeah, that's also something. Who would is there somebody? Is there a safety? Is there a specific player that will be in responsibility for Stover? Any
I'm
guess?
not exactly sure to be honest. I don't think Notre Dame's faced any decent tight ends this year. Really, I wouldn't really know for certain, but I'm sure Al Golden, those guys on the defensive side of the ball, they'll definitely have a plan of attack. Obviously,
Yeah, Notre Dame's passing defense has also been actually statistically better so far. Really, if you look at it, it's too early in the season but at least Notre Dame does have North Carolina State. Ohio State hasn't played anybody at all worth anything with skill position players and anybody dangerous there. And you mentioned at least Notre Dame did have to prepare for a triple option Navy offense, which is always a little bit difficult, and NC State. So they've had a little bit tougher of a schedule, but that's the matchup everybody's looking for. Boy, scouts galore with that one, with the corners and the receivers. So we'll see how that goes. Estime, he's off to a. You talk about somebody that we're not really talking about because we talk about the quarterbacks and everybody's going to be talking about the corner receiver matchups, but he could wind up being the player of the game.
he could. He is, if I'm not mistaken, the odds-on favorite, right up there with Blake Corum for the Doak Walker Award given to the college football's best running back on an annual basis, and he has lived up to the hype. There's a lot of expectations surrounding Audric Estime entering this season, and he's another guy that has really just exceeded expectations. It's kind of funny because like there's been some times, especially during NC State, where NC State game plan for Audric Estime really well. They held him. There were several rushes where the Notre Dame offensive line wasn't getting a great push, and he was being stopped, 2-3 yards after the line of scrimmage. But then he breaks out an 80-yard run on the first play after the rain or the weather delay, and that just inflates his stats. But I mean, you kind of see the same thing with Derrick Henry in the NFL. Some of these bigger guys,
Yes,
they just wear
that's
defenses
yeah,
down,
yeah,
and then boom, they break off that big one, and
that's
that's
right.
exactly what Audric Estime has been. I think he's top 5 in yards per carry. He was number 1 going into last week, if I'm not mistaken. Obviously, that's a great stat to look at when Notre Dame's played 4 games compared to most college football that's only played 3. And Audric Estime is still one of the top leaders right now. And uh, gosh, when you talk about Sam Hartman, what he can do, in the air,
Yes.
this is a perfect complement to him, where Audric Estime can just wear defense down, and then they also have a couple of really good running backs behind him that can be great change of pace backs and carve a defense up in those ways as well.
Yeah, matter of fact, just taking a look at the stats, it looks like Estime is actually the number one running. If you're taking a look at the
Wow,
fact,
so he still is,
yeah,
yeah,
because he's 8.27 average, but I'm basing this now. He's 12th, but that's if you're going to just invite everybody in. Like
yeah,
the guy who's
yep,
leading is 15 rushing attempts, but with the most rushing attempts, it's Estime because he has 63 rushing attempts to go along with the 8.27. So he's the one with the most rushing attempts and the highest average. So,
yep.
and then you talk about the receiver. So, yeah, has Notre Dame have they broken out yet with a specific number one guy at receiver? I mean, and Tyree. We talked how big of a deal he was going to be to this offense. Is he the guy? Is he the guy that Ohio State needs to be the most focused on besides Estime?
It's Notre Dame's wide receivers are really funny because they have 5 guys that are just all in this, or sorry, 4 guys that are all in this clump. Jaden Greathouse, Tobias Merriweather, Jane Thomas, and Chris Tyree. They all have in between 126 yards and 216 yards receiving. All of them have a touchdown. Chris Tyree has 2. Jaden Greathouse has 3. But yeah, 6, 8, 10, 12 receptions. So it's like Notre Dame really hasn't had a guy to break away to
That's
be
good.
Sam Hartman's number one guy.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, like it seems like the guy that Sam Hartman is kind of uses as his bailout guy, or has been one of the best, most reliable ones, has been the tight end Holden Stays, who has been an outstanding storyline this year. And I hope to God I talked about Holden Stays in our preview show, because that was a guy
Yes,
I
we
felt
did.
really highly about. Okay,
Yes.
great. Yeah, so now he's making me look really good. 6 receptions, 123 yards, 20 and a half yards per catch. Obviously, small sample size.
Yeah. Oh,
Six,
that's
s- Six of his receptions have gone for, or 4 of 6 of his receptions have gone for touchdowns. So Holden Stays has been a guy that's really emerged for Notre Dame in the absence of Michael Mayer, who went on to the NFL draft. Chris Tyree's been a big play guy, which is evident by his yards per catch.
yep.
Leads Notre Dame with 27 yards per reception, and he had another long play last week for a touchdown. But like the big play guy has really been freshman Jaden Greathouse. He had 2 big play touchdowns against um, Navy, and he also had another one. I forget which game it was specifically, but he leads, or not leads, but he's a second on Notre Dame's team in reception with 10. Jaden Thomas, who everyone kind of really expected to be the number one guy this year, he does lead the team with 12 receptions. Once again, not much separation there. 188 yards and a score. I think Notre Dame's really looking for him to take that next step and to become that number one guy. But Sam Hartman has, like, 5 really good wide receivers, including Holden Stays as a receiver as well. And I think he's elevated all those guys. Where Notre Dame, maybe they don't need a number one wide receiver.
Well, actually, I was looking over some of the notes from our interview, and remember, I asked you to give me a breakthrough player on offense and defense. Your breakthrough player on offense was Holden Stays,
All right, making me look good, Greg. I appreciate it.
and your number one breakthrough on defense was Rover Jaden Osbury,
Yeah. So
or nose tackle Jason Anye.
yeah, Onye. Yeah, I think I felt a little bit more comfortable about Jason Onye. With the breakthrough players on defense, I really tried to dive pretty deep on that one to see what would happen. But Jaden Osbury has just been more of a special teams guy. Jason Onye, hey, Marcus Freeman said he played his best football game coming off last week. He's got 11 tackles on the year. Um, hasn't really broke through to be like an outstanding guy yet.
Okay.
But I think the breakthrough guy on Notre Dame's defense has been Maris Leofau, the linebacker. He played the most snaps on Notre Dame's defense last year, but he was just okay. And this year, he's been probably their best defender.
Okay, yeah. As a matter of fact, he's what, second on the team in tackles with 17 behind Kaiser. Yeah.
Yeah, Kaiser's been great too.
Yeah.
And Kaiser hasn't really seen the field like as much as he should. But anytime he's out there, he's played really well, really well.
Now Bertrand's numbers seem to be a little bit down. He missed a game though.
Yeah, he missed last week with a concussion. I think he missed a quarter or two against NC State as well.
Okay.
Against NC State, I wasn't impressed with what I saw. Saw some difficulty with his pursuit angles and things like that. But I mean, JT Bertrand, he's still a really good football player.
Sure.
It's just like he's not playing at the same level as Jack Kaiser and Maris Leofau right now, but he's still playing really good football.
Yeah, he is what he is, and he's and that he's not going to be a high draft pick, but he is somebody that should make the NFL. I'm sure he'll be really good on special teams. I'm sure there'll be a role for him. Um, but this is about this week. And a matter of fact, another player that you talked about that you felt would be a top transfer was Jean Baptiste, Ohio State transfer. So how's he been so far?
Yeah, I think through the first couple weeks, he was just kind of getting his footing under him. He didn't play in the spring game for Notre Dame, so a little bit of an adjustment there. But I think last week was really his big breakout game. I don't have the stats in front of me, but I know he was toward the top of the list and leading Notre Dame in tackles. He pretty much dominated that game. He was their best defensive lineman. He is tied for second on the team in pressures with 7, so he is getting to the quarterback. Taking a look at the run stop numbers, he has 7 of those as well. That's not as great. Definitely a respectable number, but
He, he had three
like I said,
quarterback hurries last week.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. Last week was his breakout game, and just in time for Ohio State,
Oh
with
yeah,
former Buckeye,
gear
is
up.
there's going to be a lot of investment in that game. And one of our colleagues asked him, Marcus Freeman, a question about Jean Baptiste during his presser on Monday about how you rein that guy in. And he said, Mark Freeman basically said it's no different than any other guy. You just got to stay focused and not make it more than what it is. But there's no doubt that he's going to be playing with an extra gear come Saturday.
All right, now I'm going to throw some handicapping stats. And by the way, I don't know. I think we'll have a link in the description for it, but these are from Mark Lawrence's Playbook magazine, and I produce his channel, Playbook Experts. He does a handicapping show every Wednesday on that channel, and Mark Lawrence co-hosts my college football show. So I get a lot of the stats in there. He also has a very good weekly newsletter. So if you're really big into handicapping games each week, definitely check out PlaybookSports.com and Playbook Experts YouTube channel. But here is a couple of key trends that actually helped me, and that's what I use them for. If I like a game, I wanted to see if I can get something to help me along with my game and my pick. And Notre Dame 5-1 straight up and against the spread in their last 6 games as a home dog. So I'm sure this is something that's going to be talked about if it hasn't already been talked about this week. Is you put Notre Dame in a position like this, and as fans over the last several years have felt pretty good about, hey, we're not expected to win at home. We have taken care of business recently in these spots. Ohio State, meanwhile, 3-8-1 against the spread in their last 12 as a road favorite. So that, if you just take a look at the perfect mix there, working in Notre Dame's favor, you can see why I really went from liking Notre Dame to putting him as my top pick. And also, if I looked at it a little bit closer, because I'm like, well, Ohio State's only favored by 3. That's not normal. And so the last 3 times they've been a single-digit favorite, they have not covered those last 3, only
Wow.
winning 1. That was the Rose Bowl win over Utah. The other 2, Michigan.
Michigan, yep.
So those have all come over the last couple of years. But yeah, that kind of put me over the top to go with Notre Dame this week. And again, I'm strong with them this week just because mainly out of all the tools I've used, I just really like Sam Hartman. I always have, and I this is it. I'm kind of, when you're invested in a particular player. I mean, I'm kind of invested too in Grayson McCall. I really love him at Coastal Carolina, but that's a smaller kind of deal. But this is a big time opportunity for Hartman, and I'm going to kind of, put my money where my mouth is as far as how good I think he is. And this is the type of game that you just cannot disappoint because you don't get him back.
I think Sam Hartman is going to be ready to go and then some. Notre Dame rolled him out to the media on Monday for the first time ever. It was the first time Notre Dame under Marcus Freeman, I think to my knowledge, has ever had a player speak after Marcus Freeman in his weekly Monday press conference. And that seemed like a pretty big deal. They are all in on this guy. The Heisman hype is starting to
Yeah.
build. I mean, they treat that guy like a professional around there, and the way he treats everybody else, and the way his demeanor is, he is a professional. I Notre Dame has a professional at quarterback, and he's starting to play that way as well, or
Uh,
has been playing that way. Not starting, gosh, he has been. he's been playing like an NFL caliber quarterback through 4 weeks.
And that's it's a great way of putting it, because in the day and age of transfer portals and things of that nature, especially the transfer portal, you get these veteran players and quarterbacks that's really what they're there for. They're not there to go to school. They're there at this point in
No.
their career. This is an audition for the NFL and an opportunity as a young kid to try uh, to. I mean, all of the dreams as a young kid that you grew up thinking about things like this. I mean, he wasn't going to get that at Wake Forest. That's why he's at Notre Dame. He's trying to fulfill a dream. And if Notre Dame wins, we know he's going to be a big part of it. I doubt if they lose, he'll be a big part of it. He's going to give it his all. I'm sure he's going to perform well, because to tell you the one thing too that Ohio State has not done over the even last year, Knowles came over from Oklahoma State, and that was supposed to be a big deal. Well, no, it didn't really work out the first year. I don't know. We'll find out on Saturday night if they've turned a corner. But Ohio State's defense has kind of let them down in big spots in the last year or so, and that's why I'm really not too afraid that Sam Hartman won't be able to do his thing on Saturday night.
Yeah, I'm in agreement. I like Notre Dame in this game, and I it almost feels like, even though I'm, a journalist, independent guy, and like I probably sound like a homer on here, but I'm just trying to provide as much context about Notre Dame as possible. And there's just been a lot to like
Yeah.
this season. There has not been many negatives so far. A lot of that is because of the opponents they've played. But even against NC State, they really turned it on in the second half, especially the fourth quarter, and were outstanding in that game. So and just I think Notre Dame has to win one of these big games. They did it last year against Clemson. And when it comes right down to it, I think Notre Dame has a better quarterback, and I think that's what's going to put them over the edge this year.
Well, if they're going to do it, this is going to be their golden chance, no pun intended, to show the rest of the country that they are legitimate national championship contenders. They could still lose, run the table, and win the national championship, but it just becomes a lot easier to win the first one. And we'll see if they can get that done. If all goes well, or even if all does not go well, depending how things go for the next month, if things are still riding relatively high between now and USC, I look forward to talking to you for the USC game, because that's really the next big one, right?
Yeah, that will be October 14th. They have Duke and Louisville in between those games. I can't remember if they have another. I don't think so. But yeah, that USC game will be the next big one. But Duke's playing some really good football this year, so that's one that I've always had in the back of my mind about a potential trap game going
Absolutely.
to
And it's
North
on the
Carolina.
road.
Yeah, yeah. Luckily, Notre Dame's got a little bit of a benefit, that being in prime time. I think it's a 7:30 kick. They just announced that on Monday,
Oh,
so they have a little more time. Whereas like noon game, those noon games get kind of funky. Even though pretty sure it was Jack Kaiser, or no, JD Bertrand, I think, told reporters on Tuesday, or no, I think it was Jack Kaiser, in a different media entity. He said that Notre Dame loves those noon games. So, well, they hopefully they start to love these primetime games as
oh
well,
yeah.
because Notre Dame's going to keep playing under the lights if they keep playing like this.
Yeah. Well, they have mastered the ACC competition for a while,
Yes. Yeah,
and
they haven't lost an ACC game in like 5 years. I
yeah.
don't think it's yeah.
So hopefully that, if you're a Notre Dame fan, of course, that will be what you'll look at next week. But yeah, Duke's playing UConn, so as long as they don't look ahead there, because Cincinnati might have looked ahead and lost to Miami of Ohio before the Oklahoma matchup. It happens. Florida State almost lost to Boston
Yeah.
College. Maybe they were looking ahead at Clemson. So you just don't know. But Duke, I don't think they're not Florida State. They're not those programs yet. They can't look ahead against anybody. So I'm sure they'll be prepared and ready for Notre Dame next week. So, but that's next week, and obviously you can check out everything at on3.com. We have the link in the description area for everybody, all the fans. If you haven't already checked out Kyle's work at On3 Network, you can go ahead and do that. And then again, we'll talk soon. Are you going to be do you do anything? Because I don't know. You don't have like a usual regular podcast, do you?
I actually do now.
You
Yeah,
do.
this season, this is something we unveiled. As I've kind of said a few times when I've been on, but I'm primary covering college football recruiting. Obviously Notre Dame, but I do contribute and pitch into some team coverage as well. I don't try to be the expert on team coverage. I think I do a good job of trying to keep tabs on those things, and I go to the press conferences sometimes and certainly watch the games and all that, but recruiting is my beat.
That's the
That's my
thing. Yeah.
expertise. And yeah, every Thursday morning on the Blue and Gold YouTube channel at 10:30 a.m., myself and Mike Singer, we talk Notre Dame football recruiting. And yeah, I've been known to pitch in some football content as well. I know that I got thrown into the loop for our post game NC State show a few weeks ago. So I do like to talk some Notre Dame football, but yes, you can find me every Thursday morning on Blue and Gold's YouTube channel talking Notre Dame football recruiting.
And it's going to be a big show this week with the
Oh
big
my gosh,
news.
you have no idea that this visitor slate for Notre Dame, in terms of the recruits that are coming in, is just unbelievable. They have like 25 top targets from around the country that are going to be on campus. I don't think Notre Dame's really ever seen a visitor slate like this.
Wow. Well, it's so far so good. The 2023 season. We'll see what happens on Saturday night. Kyle, appreciate it as always, and hopefully we'll talk for the USC game as well.
All right, thanks, Greg.